Good morning, everyone. I am so proud to be here this morning for the first time ever Walmart has participated in this magnificent event. And I'm joined here this morning with several of our female leaders and leaders here at your local Walmart stores in both the Philadelphia, Eastern Pennsylvania, and New Jersey regions as well. So we're really just grateful to be here and to take part of this event. This initiative that Stuart has undertaken over the past years align really well to what our mission as an organization is. And so they asked me to come up and introduce your keynote speaker today, so I am going to do that. So I'd like to introduce Reshma Saujani. And now to tell you a little bit about her, Reshma is the founder and the CEO of Girls Who Code. Girls That Code are on a mission right now to close the gender gap in the technology field and make the image of programmers just a little bit different. And quite frankly, as a former recruiter in the IT space, I have firsthand witnessed that gender gap in the technology industries as I attend events such as this and career and college events as well. So I'm so pleased with the work that she's doing also. She is also Girls That Code has reached out and has touched more than 90,000 young women across all 50 states in their efforts to close that gap. She's an author of 3 books. One happens to be a New York Times bestseller, which is Girls That Code, Learn to Code and Change the World, and also Women Who Don't Wait in Line, as well as the one that you're all getting a copy of today. I think it's a new release, Brave, Not Perfect, which also happens to be the theme of a TED Talk that you can see that Reshma has participated in, and I believe has had more than 4 million views. So, an excellent example to all of you of a risk taker and a change maker. Please welcome your keynote speaker today.
So there's nothing more I like than to start my morning with a bunch of girls. So good morning. How are you? So today we are going to talk a little bit about why every girl should learn how to code and why you should all be brave, not perfect. And the first thing I'm going to do is find my little clicker. Okay. So I spend my life teaching girls like you to code, but I'm not a coder. My parents came here as refugees in 1973. And every night at dinner, my father would sit me on the table and he would ask me, what's 5 plus 5? And I would be like, 9? And he was like, no. So from the time I was like your age, I got terrified of math and science. But my dad did another thing for me. Every night when he would come home, he would also read to me about Dr. King, Mahatma Gandhi, Eleanor Roosevelt. So from the time I was a little girl, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to change the world. I wanted to give back to this country that had literally saved my parents' life. I went to law school, grad school, college, graduated with a ton of student loan debt. Thought I'd move to New York City and I'd pay off that student loan debt in like a month or 2. Well, that didn't happen. And I woke up kind of 10 years later, coming home. I was working in finance as a lawyer, so basically like the opposite of public service. And I hated my job. And I remember it was one day, and my best friend called me. And it's funny how your best friend always calls you when your life is falling apart. And I remember taking her phone call and walking into this windowless conference room on like 47th Street and just crying. And my friend Deepa said, you know what? Just quit. Just quit. And I was like, I can do that? Because you see, for most of my life, I was the perfect immigrant daughter. I got straight A's. I went to the schools I was supposed to go to. I worked at the places I was supposed to work at. I was home by 9 o'clock. I was a good girl. And good girls don't quit. So I didn't feel like I had the permission to actually pursue my dreams instead of the dreams that had been set out by my family. But because I was so broken And so far from that dream that that little 13-year-old had, I knew that I had to do something about it. So at age 33 years old, I decided to run for United States Congress. I decided to run in a Democratic primary in New York City against someone who had been there for 18 years. I was the first South Asian woman to ever run for Congress. I had basically like a 1% chance of winning, but it was the best 10 months of my life. I remember the only thing my friends and I knew how to do was build a website. We built one, and we raised like $50,000 from Indian aunties that were just so happy an Indian girl was running for office, right? But like I said, it was the best 10 months of my life. And on election day, I was sitting there holding my father's hand, watching those election returns come in, and that little ticker was not moving past 19% of the vote. I had lost. I was broke. I was humiliated. I had angered everybody in the Democratic establishment for not waiting my turn. And I knew that people were either laughing at me or feeling sorry for me, neither one of which I liked. But the biggest revelation I had the day after my election loss was I sat there and I said to myself, oh my God, I'm not broken. I'm not broken. I had thought for so long in my life that if I tried something, that if I pursued my biggest dream and it didn't work out, that it would literally break me. And it didn't. And that was the beginning of living my life very differently. It was also the beginning of Girls Who Code. Because you see, when I ran for office, I ended up going into a lot of schools in New York City, and I would go into computer science classes and robotics labs, and I would just see a ton of boys learning how to be the next Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs. And I remember thinking to myself, where are the girls? Where are the girls? We know that women are the majority in college, the majority in the labor force. We're 40% of America's breadwinners. But where are we in this industry called technology that is literally shaping our future? And the other thing I kept thinking about was, again, my dad. You see, my father used to always say to me, Reshma, you have three choices. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, right? Some of us have heard this speech before. And it's because why? He wanted me to have a good job, buy a home, be able to support my family. And here's the thing, oftentimes we are not having this conversation with our young people, especially our young girls. When you are a software programmer coming out of college, you can make $120,000, right? You talk to any business executive in the country, our friend here at Walmart will tell you his number one problem, can't find enough engineers. Whether you are in Silicon Valley, New York City, Arkansas, or Montana, it is the same problem, right? And the interesting thing is that I feel like the solution to the technology gap, I feel like the solution to our labor force problem is girls. Like I said before, girls are basically the majority of those in college. But the interesting thing is as this chart shows you, is that in technology, year after year after year, we have declined. 1995, 37%. In 2025, if we do nothing else, it's actually getting worse, 22%. And the thing is that it wasn't always this way. That if you had walked into any gaming camp in America in the 1980s, it would have been half boys, half girls. If you walked into any computer science classroom in America, it would have been half boys, half girls. We all know that the world's first programmer was a woman, Ada Lovelace. We know the stories, hopefully, about Katherine Johnson and Ada Lovelace and the ENIAC women and Hedy Lamarr. There were transformative figures in this industry that were women. We started it all. We literally started it all. And then the question is, well, what's happened? Why have we had this enormous decline? The first reason is culture. Culture. If I talk to any young woman in the country and I ask her to tell me what a computer programmer looks like, you know what she says? He's a white guy in a hoodie, sitting in a basement somewhere. He's drinking a Red Bull. He's staring at a screen, and he hasn't showered. right? And most of you say, you know what? Not only do I not want to be him, I don't even want to be friends with him. This image that we've seen in culture has turned girls off. And for some of us old folks, right, we know when this image was born, 1980s, Weird Science, Revenge of the Nerds, War Games, right? We saw him, and today we see him on Silicon Valley, on HBO. What do our girls get instead? Our girls get a Barbie doll that says, I hate math. Let's go shopping instead. Our girls get t-shirts that you can buy at Forever 21 that say, I'm allergic to algebra. Our girls get Mean Girls, which, yes, I also watch on repeat, right? But it has the scene where she gets, an A on her math test, and she crosses it out for the affections of a boy. I remember the very day that I decided that I wanted to be a lawyer. I had snuck into my parents' basement, and I was watching this movie, The Accused, and there's this amazing woman, Kelly McGillis. Some of us remember her, right? And I remember thinking, oh my God, she is so awesome. I want to be just like her. And I made my parents drive me to the library and print out a copy of the U.S. News and World Report to go to the best law school, because of course I was super type A then too. But anyway, that is when I decided. And here's the thing, we forget, but in the 1970s, less than 10% of women, lawyers and doctors were women, less than 10%. Today, over 50%. Why? Ally McBeal, Grey's Anatomy, LA Law. We inundated television, magazines, and culture with these fabulous women that were doctors and lawyers, and little girls said, you know what, me too. Me too. Sign me up. We've done the opposite thing in technology. Culture plays a huge role. The other thing that I've been thinking a lot about, making sweaters about, is this idea that we raise our girls to be perfect, and we raise our boys to be brave. I got an opportunity a couple years ago to give a TED Talk. And they asked me a couple months before the conference, so I was clearly on the B list. A lot of people had said no, and then they just asked me. So I was terrified, right? I mean, for a public speaker, being invited to TED is like the Super Bowl, right? If you're gonna go, you better bring it. So every bone in my body wanted to just give the same talk that I always give and to not go deep, because I just didn't feel like I had enough time to prepare. Sound familiar? But I made myself really, really go deep and to think about, I am so blessed to be in the company of girls. What have I seen with them that maybe explains some of the reason why it feels like our leadership numbers for women and girls have just not moved in the past 100 years? And I remember every teacher at Girls Who Code would tell me the same story. She'd say, during the first week, we're teaching girls how to code for the first time. Most of them, all of them, have never coded before. And every teacher would tell me the same story. She'd say, a student would call her teacher over, and she'd say to her teacher, I don't know what code to write. And the teacher would look at her screen, and she'd see a blank text editor. So if she didn't know any better, she thought that her student just spent 20 minutes just staring at the screen. But when the teacher pressed undo a few times on the computer, she saw that her student actually wrote code, but then deleted it. So instead of showing her the progress that she made and saying, what should I do differently? She'd rather show her nothing at all. Perfection or bust. Where does this come from? Look, it starts from the time that we are less than 30 months old. And all you have to do to see what I'm saying is to sit on a playground. You'll watch parents kind of tell their boys, crawl to the top of the monkey bars and just jump. But with our girls, we're like, careful, honey. Don't swing too high. Is your dress dirty? Come over here, let me clean you up. Did you take that toy away from her? Give it back. From the time that our girls are young, we are protecting them. We are coddling them. We are wrapping them up with bubble wrap. But with our boys, we're teaching them how to be risk takers, how to fail, how to be men. And what happens is as our girls get older, they get addicted to perfection. And they start giving up before they even try. Studies show that when a young woman declares a major in college, if she gets a B instead of an A, she drops out. Whereas boys are like, I got a B, that's amazing. Right? And you see all this perfectionism, it's causing two things to happen. One, as young women and as women, it is causing us to be unhappy. Women are twice as likely to be depressed as men. We are literally letting our good ideas die on the vine, and we see other people doing the very thing that we told ourselves we couldn't do, and we are left with regret and envy, and it eats us up inside. The second thing that perfectionism is doing is it's making us wait till we have to be perfect to lead. Studies show that men will apply for a job if they meet 60% of the qualifications. 60%. Women, 100%. 100%. We have to meet 100% of the qualifications before we even apply. So when you look at the numbers in Silicon Valley, when you look at the numbers in Congress, when you look at the numbers on Main Street, no wonder why we haven't made much progress. Because we are waiting to be perfect to lead. I think that the solution to this, I think the antidote to perfectionism is bravery. I think bravery is a muscle that you literally build day after day after day after day. And it teaches you how to unwind and unwire all of this perfectionism that we have been taught from the moment we are basically coming out of the womb. And I did exactly that when I started Girls Who Code. When I started Girls Who Code, I was a failed politician. I was broke. But because I did not die, because that race and losing that race did not break me, I had the courage to build a movement about a topic that I knew nothing about. Remember, I was not a coder. But I simply had an idea, and I worked in that idea. And every day I would come home from work and I would have dinner with someone or lunch with someone, and I'd learn about what it is about women in technology, what has happened, what we can do to actually solve this problem. And then I thought to myself, Girls Who Code, that's a great name. I went on GoDaddy.com and I bought it for $1.99. Literally. I handpicked my first 20 girls that were in my program in 2012. I asked a friend if I could borrow his conference room to teach them. I paid my girls, $50 each and put pizza on my credit card so that they had lunch. But I just tried. I, for the first time in my life, did not give up before I even tried. And now, 7 years later, we've built a movement. We've actually taught over 185,000 girls how to code. We have 6,000 clubs across the country. We've reached millions and millions of girls through our books and through our videos and through the culture-changing work that we do. Half the girls I teach are living under the poverty line. Half the girls are Black and Latina. You can't go to a college campus in this country and not walk into this computer science department, and most of them are my students. They are our alumni. We are solving this problem. It's not a pipeline problem anymore. Now the question is, will we hire them? Look, I am a feminist with a capital F, but I don't spend my life solving this problem because I believe in parity for the sake of parity. I believe that girls, they're going to heal us. They're going to lead us. They are going to change the world, especially this generation. There's humanity and compassion in them in a way that I have never seen before in my life. And I see this in my students every single day. One of my first students, Cora, was 5 years old when her daddy got diagnosed with cancer. And she decided at that moment that she was going to become a doctor because she wanted to save her father's life. And it wasn't until Girls Who Code that she saw that there was a connection between computer science and medicine, where she built an algorithm to help detect whether a cancer is benign or malignant. 16 years old. I think of one of my students, Anastasia, youngest woman in the country to get a patent. She built a microchip that you put into a gun. So when a gun is in an area that it shouldn't be in, like a school, it alerts the police. It's so brave, right? So smart. I could go, I think of two of my students, Sophie and Andy, built a game called Tampon Run. Yes, Tampon Run. Because they said, you know what, so many young women everyone gets their period. And so many young women get their period in other countries and they drop out because of the menstruation taboo. And they said, you know, instead of building another shooter game, let me build a game about the menstruation taboo. Here's the thing. No boy was sitting there thinking, the menstruation taboo. I gotta do something about it. Let me build a game. Never going to happen, right? There are things that we see and we touch and we feel so deeply that we want to solve. And our job as your parents, as your educators, as the people who support you is to give you that shot, to give you that chance. And we as a country, at a moment where it feels like we are so broken, if we want to do something about it, we have to invest in our girls. We have to invest in our girls. You know, I started this talk by talking to you about how I was the daughter of refugees. I, from the time I can remember, have helped my parents pay the bills. I've worked at everything from Baskin-Robbins to telemarketing to retail. The other reason why I go to work every day is because I believe that coding and technology is the great equalizer. There are so many of our clubs across the country where families are decimated by the opioid epidemic, whose parents' jobs have been automated through technology, but still girls every day are showing up at Girls Who Code clubs to learn how to code so that they too can march up into the middle class. And I want to quickly show you a video about one of my students and her dad.
Wake up, work, and then it's got me pretty stressed out to the point where I don't really eat like I should. I'm a fueler for a rental company.
In the winter time, it's a lot more strenuous. He works, anywhere from 7 in the morning until 4 in the morning the next day, 7 days a week straight.
My work is dangerous. I'm basically driving a bomb around the truck full of fuel.
My dad works a lot. He wakes up early and comes home late at night.
I wouldn't want Courtney to do what I do. I wanted her to go to college. I wanted her to have more opportunities in life. That's why I put Courtney in coding.
The goal was really just trying to get them comfortable, not being afraid to make mistakes.
Everybody listen to Courtney, please.
So to get the cat to pop out, I had to get it out, I had to just leave that there. It's difficult because you have to do this math with it.
And what's that math for?
To when you click to show where it will go.
Okay, so
Coding has taught me that nothing comes easy.
Girls Who Code is a lot more than just coding. We cover a lot of life skills, asking questions, working together, and teamwork.
Coding makes you be able to create stuff. I get to see what I create come to life.
I put her in these extracurricular activities so she can advance and have a career that's less labor intensive.
I think coding will give them, more opportunity for not only employment, but it's also sort of the next craft.
Courtney is the center of my world. I've had full custody of her since I was in the military. She's kept me strong and focused. My goal before I die is to just make sure that her life's as comfortable as can be, and I'm here as much as I can be for her.
I like to make stories, which means I would like to make them come to life. My dream is to probably work at Cartoon Network.
Which she always, when she puts her mind to it, she can do anything she wants.
Courtney's smart, she's kind, and she's a coder.
So here's the fun part. What can you all do to help? And the first thing that we need to do to help solve this problem is to change culture. So I wanted to just quickly show you what we're up against. So this was a book that Barbie put out, and the title of the book was called You Can Be a Computer Science Engineer. So the point of the book was to inspire all of Barbie's fans to go into computer science. That's Barbie, that's her friend Skipper. Your robot puppy is so sweet, says Skipper. Can I play your game? I'm only creating the design ideas, Barbie says, laughing. I need Steven and Brian's help to turn it into a real game. Yeah. So, I know, it's horrible. So, basically in 4 lines, Barbie told all her fans, you're not smart enough. You're not good enough. Computers, it's boys' thing. These things matter. And this book, it didn't come out in 2002 or 9 or 12. It came out in 15, right? And you will see these things in subtle and not so subtle ways. And we also see the opposite of that, hidden figures. Every girl in the world now knows who Katherine Johnson is. And so many girls of color are like, you know what? I can do that too. It matters what you see. It matters what you see. And so culture matters. And so it's so incumbent upon all of us that when we see things like this, we speak up and we speak out. And we make brands, we make companies actually respond immediately to turning our girls off. I think about this every day. I stalk 2 people, Shonda Rhimes and Disney, like it's my job, right? Because I think about, well, if Shonda Rhimes created her next show about an amazing woman of color coder, it could change the world. If Disney did the same thing. And so how do we encourage brands to essentially do that? We do a lot of this at Girls Who Code. I want to show you a video that we did in using comedy to actually change what people think of coders. We won the Cannes Lions and we got like 4 million views in a day.
Yeah, I've tried to get into coding, but my cleavage is just so distracting.
I can't code because my long eyelashes make it hard to see the screen.
I get lost in them.
Plus, it's hard to keep my eyes open with these auburn strands of mink constantly weighing them down.
When I'm not menstruating, I'm ovulating, so there's no time to code at all.
It's super hard to code when every month your insides are ripped from your body in slow motion.
Every hour I have to get to the bathroom to change my tampon. Otherwise, you get toxic shock syndrome. That leads to getting your arms amputated. Obviously, that makes it even harder to code.
My boobs really prevent me from coding.
I don't even have boobs yet, and they still get in the way. It's crazy.
It's hard to code when you can't stop crying.
Or when you're having mood swings. Like here comes one now.
Totally.
Coding is just too rational when I'm this emotional.
So it's so awesome about this video, besides the fact it's hilarious, is that so many girls were sharing it online and they were also being like, oh my God, this video is so funny. What's coding, right? So sometimes it's about, when you're culture shifting, it's about getting girls to eat their broccoli, right? And finding other creative ways to get in and to get them interested in coding. Girls Who Code has 6,000 clubs across the country. We have found, and we're releasing this report later this year, is that there's a lot of initiatives across the country to get computer science for all, right? All across the country. But when we have FOIA requested from every state and every city the numbers for gender and for race of what those classrooms look like. And guess what? They don't look that great. The number of girls going into computer science, the number of students of color going into computer science is not going up. But what we have found is where we're actually making an impact on race and gender is in those school districts that have Girls Who Code clubs. We know and are now proving that if there's a space for single-sex education, for girls learning how to code, that they are more likely to then go sign up for their APCS class after they have that positive experience. So we need to make sure that we have a club in every single school, 3rd grade on up, in this country and in the world. And we can do this. And I need every single person in this room to help make that happen. The last piece that I want to leave with you before I take some questions is bravery and unlearning perfectionism. We talked about the fact earlier that bravery is a muscle. It is a muscle that you have to build, and it's something that you will fall on and off the wagon. We've taught over 185,000 girls to code, and we don't just teach girls to code. We teach them how to be brave, not perfect. And I have seen them do incredible things once that they've learned this skill. So I want to leave you with a couple of strategies. Before I start, here's the first thing. And here's the thing, ladies. This is not just for you, but this is for your moms and your grandmoms. This is for everybody. This is for every single woman in this room. It is never too late to unlearn perfectionism. Here's the first thing. You cannot be brave if you are tired. You cannot be brave if you are tired. And every woman I know, and every teenager I know is exhausted. We're exhausted. You don't sleep, you don't eat, you don't exercise. Most of us kind of, postpone doctor's appointments because suddenly it's too selfish to go to the doctor. You cannot be brave if you are tired. So the first thing is, we gotta rest. We gotta rest. The second strategy is I want everybody to practice imperfection. Practice imperfection. So what does that mean for you? So for the young girls in this room, this young girl, Isabel, told me the story. Isabel says, you know what? I'm not good at math. She's 8 years old. Her mom says, what are you talking about? You have an A in math. And she said, the other day when when the teacher asked me to do a math problem, the answer didn't come to me right away. So instead of saying that I needed more time, I raised my hand and I said I had to go to the bathroom. When you practice imperfection, that means that you can say, give me more time. That the answer doesn't have to come to you right away. That your mindset is not fixed. That it doesn't mean that you're either good at something or bad at something. So part of what we have to do is practice imperfection. For the women in this room, I want you to practice imperfection by sending an email with a typo in it, right? We spend so much time rereading and rewriting and rereading our emails with like 100 emojis and explanation points, right? And we go so quickly from I have a typo to I made a mistake to I'm stupid to I'm gonna get fired all in about 10 seconds, right? It's just not true. Nobody cares about your typo. No one cares about your typo, right? Just like no one cares that it has to be perfect. So we all have to figure out what imperfection means for us in our lives and practice it. The second thing is we have to learn, and I use the S word, we have to learn how to do things that we are not good at. Every man I know does things that he sucks at that he likes. Basketball, tennis, golf, right? Fantasy football. They're not good at it. They just like it, right? Most of us won't even go to a spinning class till we're in shape, right? The point of going to work out is to get in shape, right? So we have got to, and this happens at such a young age, right? We know that when our young girls go to gymnastics class and they can't do a cartwheel and they come home crying, we pull them out, we put them into soccer. We just want them to feel good. They don't know what it's like to feel mediocre at something. Here's the thing. Most people are mediocre at life, and they're our president, right? So we have to stop making them feel like they have to be great at it, and it's okay for them to know what it feels like to not be the best. That's life. You know, Carol Dweck says that if life were one long grade school, girls would rule the world, but it's not. So let's teach them things at a young age that will help them be the President of the United States when they get older, and that is not perfection. So for you young girls, I encourage you to stop thinking about that just because you're good at something, you like it. You actually may be good at something that you don't like. And you actually may like something that you're not good at. They're two different things. Do you hear me? They're two different things. Find out what that is for you. Find out what that is for you, because bravery is joy. Life is amazing. You want to be able to live a life that you feel alive at most of the time. And that means that you need to be in a constant journey, even at your age, to figure out what it is that you enjoy, what makes you happy. I like yoga. I'm horrible at yoga. Can't do a handstand, barely can do a child's pose, but I love Shavasana. I love Shavasana, right? So you know what? I go to yoga class for Shavasana, and I don't judge myself because I'm not 5'7" and like this and can put my head on something. It doesn't matter, it's okay. But for so long I did, and I would deprive myself of Shavasana because I was not good at yoga. And so I try to find things that I can do that I enjoy that I'm never gonna be good at. And it feels good. It makes me feel alive. And I promise it will do the same for you. The third thing is, and I'm gonna be quiet because I'm probably way out of time, is just start. Just start. Remember I said earlier, so many of us have things that we wanted to do, but we talked ourselves out of them. And oftentimes we're sitting here at 40 and 50 and we are just bitter and envious. It's true, if we were really honest with ourselves, we are. Because we see other people doing the thing that we told ourselves that we cannot do. And it literally forms a pit in your stomach. You know what changes that? Taking one step towards your goal. Taking one step towards your goal. If you want to sell jam at the market, make a batch, right? If you want to write a book, start journaling every night. If you're looking at your closet and it is like yesterday's the past 5 years spring clothes, just clean one shelf, right? Just take one step. For me, I bought the URL to Girls Who Code, and then I went and told somebody at a dinner party that I wanted to start a nonprofit. I just took too many steps and I couldn't go back. I had to start the organization. That's generally what happens. When you just start, you're like, oh, I can do the next step and the next step and the next step. It becomes easier. So just start. Listen, I know it's my last thing. When we think about bravery, we're living in a tremendous time right now. 6 women running for office, for president, right? Powerful people being taken down by Me Too. I'm not talking about bravery on the biggest stage. I'm talking about everyday bravery. I'm gonna make a bold statement. The way we've been raising our girls is wrong. Throw your parenting books in the garbage. Because here's the thing, in the name of increasing their confidence, we have killed their resilience. Killed it. And so we gotta start over again. And I truly believe, in my experience, in my work with girls, that we have to raise them to be brave, not perfect. That we have to unlearn perfectionism, and we have to start as young as we possibly can. And for us old ladies in the room, it is not too late. It is never too late. And we have to do the same thing for ourselves because they're watching us every single day. Thank you.